Wanted to get this video out earlier today, but I've been so busy. Look at this, undercover cops parking in front of a fire hydrant, mile away from the curb. They don't care. Best way to enforce the law is by example, so they're not doing that. I wonder what she thinks of the assassination attempt, but she's on the phone. Point is, I wanted to talk about this guy, Gary. He's having a meltdown with his minimal tactical, what is it called? Paramount Tactical. Okay. So this is a company selling guns, or I don't know what the hell he does. I looked at the website, they're doing training and tactical, whatever, security, you know. So if you're, maybe needing to choke somebody on 17th Street, it seems like this is a guy you could call and, you hire him and he brings the heavies to do the choking. He's not very smart, though, is the problem. This is not a video to attack Gary, but I do want to discuss his meltdown because I never heard of this idiot before a week ago, and he decided he wanted to start making false, unsubstantiated and actionable statements that harm me in my business. Everybody knows that I do these sponsor-exclusive shows with lots of different people. John Cullen is one of the longest-standing co-hosts on Crowdsource the Truth, and for years, every Friday, he and I have been doing a show. John's been doing tremendous work on the assassination attempt and figuring out what's going on over there, and we've been doing lots and lots of shows. People have seen his Twitter account at @I_am_John Cullen is blowing up. He's over 100,000 now. And people might say, oh, whatever. John and I have been doing this for years. We're trying to put this information out, let people decide what they think about it, and make a living at that. And it's something that social engineers have attempted to destroy from the moment that I started. But everybody knows that John and I do these shows together. And so when you're free to disagree with anything that we say. And in fact, this is the irony that I want to share with people about how incredibly stupid Gary is and how we know that he's either a fatally stupid thug or a social engineer. And I think he might be both. It's important for people to remember that the things I'm sharing with you right now are my opinions based on just evidence I've seen in the public domain, things that Gary has published on the internet, things he's said and done. My opinions, pure opinion. You might look at these same things and you might come to a different conclusion than I have. Look at the shoes on that dog. That's fancy. Look at this dog with the fancy shoes. That's New York City. But the point is, a lot of people disagree on facts and evidence. And in other words, you can't disagree on what a fact is if you are a reasonable person, but you can disagree with the conclusion that somebody makes based on facts. For instance, I never heard of this guy, Gary, before he produced a video in which he questioned something that John had said about some images that we saw in that video from Unsteady Dave Stewart. Lee is quick to point out, not the British guy from the Eurythmics. I don't know if that guy's still alive. Annie Lennox, I see, but without him. Anyway, the point is, John saw this video and he said, boom, muzzle flash coming out of the window. And the thing is, I did not agree that it looked like muzzle flash. John and I actually got into an argument about this because he was like personally insulted that he thought that I was, putting down the evidence or whatever. What I was saying was, I don't think it's muzzle flash for a couple different reasons. Reason one was, first of all, I didn't trust anything we were looking at in that Dave video because he was being so sketchy about giving us the original. And what I detected was a high probability that somebody was trying to put attractive but false information out there. This is a pretty common social engineering technique, obviously. Nobody's going to fool you or lure you to do something by trying to attract you with something that you don't want. If somebody says, hey, come over here into this deli, I'm going to beat you up, you're unlikely to go in there. But if they say, hey, free sandwiches, and then you get in there and get beaten up, that's a trick. You're lured in with something that seems attractive, but then when you get inside, bang. And so I saw this developing and I said, you know, I don't trust this unsteady Dave. And although there might be something happening in that window, I agreed with that. It was on screen for too many frames, in my opinion, to be muzzle flash. And again, me saying I don't trust the evidence doesn't mean that I'm coming to the conclusion that Dave has done a visual effects exercise and put muzzle flash into the window, although that's obviously easily doable and possible. It was just, this is not trustworthy evidence, so I don't want to make a strong conclusion about it, other than I think there's reasons to believe it's not muzzle flash. I think we need more information. So whatever. John got kind of upset about that. And the thing I was trying to tell him is, look, I don't disagree with you that I would expect gunfire out of this room based on what we understand about what appears to be a complex deception, elaborate scheme put together by who knows, you know, seems like people in charge on July 13th. But I just kind of want to learn more about it before I say what is going on in that window. And sure enough, a few days later, we got more footage. We got body cam footage, and I noticed certain things about that body cam footage. So what it did was the new footage allowed us to see a different camera from a different angle. And so what that did right away, some people were saying, hey, this is a reflection, not muzzle flash. And I was also confident that it wasn't a reflection, but again, maybe I was wrong. People can look at that, think it's a reflection. Somebody thinks it's muzzle flash. I don't know that Gary the genius has given any explanation as to what he thinks it is. Some equipment inside the glass building that just happens to flash instantaneously in the precise moment that Trump is being shot at. I mean, I think a reasonable person would have to admit it's certainly suspicious that this event occurs in the window nearly simultaneous. There was something sketchy going on there. Nearly simultaneous with the shots. I mean, that just seems a bit too coincidental to be mere coincidence, so what is it? I still have the feeling, and in fact, this second video from the body cam, it had even more frames of this thing, 5 or 6 frames that I saw. And I never said, people misunderstand what I say a lot. I'm trying to understand why that is. I'm not saying that a muzzle flash lasts for a long, or that, 6 frames is the better part of a second. I'm just saying I've dealt with a lot of motion picture and video productions that have muzzle flashes in them. That doesn't mean I fired the gun. That doesn't mean I know what kind of ammunition it is, but through X-Men and Spider-Man, and I can't even think of the list of all the other things that we've worked on. There was something with the Vietnam War in 3D that we had with Discovery Channel. I don't remember the name of it. But there's a lot of things that we've looked at. Elements, visual effects elements, but muzzle flashes don't stay on screen for more than a frame or 2, in my experience. And I actually even went to a video that I made at the gun range of me firing a gun, amazing, with Larry Johnson, right? He's an NRA certified, whatever he was. Took me there and gave me a gun instruction class. I've been shooting, I think, 3 times, 4 or 5 times, something like that. Skeet shooting. Did I go twice with John? I think only once I went shooting with John Cullen. Maybe I've been 3 or 4 times shooting. I don't claim to be an expert. John has expertise with guns. Has he said some things that I disagree with about his conclusions? Yes. I did not think that was muzzle flash. That doesn't mean I think I'm a gun expert. But anyway, back to Gary. Why does he care what we say? Why doesn't he go about dealing with his putative neo-Nazi tactical company? And why does he care what we say? I really don't care what other people say. I only talk about what other people are saying when I detect that they're trying to do something to me. And I detected that with Gary. Because the other thing I want to dispel is that I'm not here to defend John Cullen or necessarily anybody who comes onto my show. I'm not his agent. I'm not his employer. I'm not his mother. He can defend himself. So actually what happened was, this was like a week ago, Gary put up this thing saying that John was a fraud. And the ironic thing is, I actually tried to contact Gary because I wanted to talk to him. This was like right in the midst of when John and I were fighting about this evidence. And I mean, it wasn't any kind of big fight. It was just like, you know, friends disagreeing and arguing and whatever. I like this dog. But it was just ironic that Gary starts in with all this at a moment where I'm like, yeah, I kind of disagree with John. And I really wanted to talk to this guy to understand what it was about it that made him say that made him believe it wasn't muzzle flash, and talk to him about other ideas about what it might have been. At that point in time, I had not yet discovered that remote control rifle with the article saying, watch this technology turn a 12-year-old girl into an expert marksman, and it shows the rifle with the whole, some kind of infrared optical thing, and it can be targeted and controlled remotely. Other people sent me this. They found it. This is like technology that exists. And frankly, it's not that surprising. We know that there's a lot of remote controlled things, remote controlled camera heads. There's a lot of precision remote controlled things. Why not just put a gun on one of those things, remote control it? By the way, this is what I think is going on in the window. I think there's somebody in there with some sort of technology that perhaps we're not familiar with, something on the order of a little, like, you know, boop, a little laser, a little infrared beam. That what if you have a device that when you click it, it shoots a beam at your target and remotely fires a gun? Wouldn't that be the perfect way to do this? Go into the middle of the woods the morning, or have somebody up there, install the thing and leave. And then you have someone in a room nowhere near where it is, fire it remotely. So the sound is off over there. Your people are in the American Glass building. Nobody knows who's doing what. I'm not saying that's what happened. I'm just saying we've now identified all the technology. And by that, I mean, we've looked online, and this is not stuff that I imagined and invented in my head. These are all products that you can get. And I'm sure whoever did this has access to products and technology and things that aren't advertised on the internet that you could do that kind of thing with. But the point is, I was in agreement with Gary. I said, look, I didn't get to speak to the guy because he doesn't answer his phone, because he's a cagey dude who probably knew that I would try to call him. I see, what I'm getting at is, I don't think any of what Gary is doing here is real. I think this is his little plot to try to trip up John Cullen, because John is having tremendous success in dispelling some of this narrative that's being, you know, spewed out on the news and in Congress and elsewhere. So I haven't really researched this dunce Gary, because he's not that important to me at all, but we sort of started mixing it up, and I was just like, who the hell is this guy? So I looked at his tactical webpage, and, you know, he's an ex-army, whatever the hell he is. So he thinks he's some kind of hero. Let's see, what does it say? Gary Meltdown. And then he's got his cadre of people here who, you know, if you want to kill somebody, these seem like the guys to call. And I don't doubt that this guy has a lot of knowledge about guns and bullets and blowing things up and how to go to countries that he shouldn't be in the first place and kill people for a military-industrial complex that's destroying this country, so he can make, I don't know, 6 figures or some really inconsequential amount of money to finance his idiotic, inconsequential life. And then this piece of shit thinks he's some kind of American hero. He's not. He is a psychopath, in my opinion, based on his psychopathic behavior. So I didn't say anything to him, even after he insulted my associate, my cooperative co-host on a show that I earn money from. He's damaging my business. And when you accuse someone of fraud, there's a lot of genius lawyers who are running anonymous accounts and are friends with this idiot Gary. I'm not a lawyer. Nothing I say is legal advice. But my opinion as a layperson is that even if a lawyer does tell you this or that will or will not happen in court, they really don't know. So if Gary wants to sue me for saying that I think he's a fucking Nazi, he should try it, because that's my pure opinion that I'm expressing to people. I don't know that he's a Nazi. He certainly is not currently a member of the German National Socialist Party. He would have to have been alive in the 1930s for that. What I'm saying is, he uses this symbol to represent his company, which is called the, what is it called? The Val Knut or something like this. And there's a lot of debate as to what this is. Stupid people who follow dummies like Gary on Twitter, who probably are themselves contractors, operators, and mentally ill morons who shouldn't have gone to the countries that they went to, where they unfortunately had to sacrifice their mental health. I had sympathy for them before they started fucking with me, but now I just think they're psychopathic assholes who are aligned with George and his brother. And it's weird because, you see, we've got all these body cameras that are coming out now, and I don't know exactly what went on July 13th, but it seems to me, possibly, that there were elements of law enforcement, elements of federal agencies who were in on this, maybe, and others who weren't. And it could be that there's something of a power struggle going on right now, where maybe certain people are releasing certain things that other people don't want released, and then maybe now we're learning little details that could spell trouble for people who are involved in any potential illegal activity here. And the thing that I noticed that's strange, we've been talking a lot on X about doppelgangers and how many just similar looking people were there that day. And I don't mean they look exactly alike in a photograph like Max Yerrick or Keenan Hooper, or people who look like either of those guys, or Crooks, or any of this. I'm just saying, like, there's like 5 kind of like 5'11"-ish skinny white guys with beards and pale legs wearing cargo shorts and black sneakers, and they're all kind of walking around this building and then going in and out of it after the shooting. It's weird. And they kind of look to me like these sort of like contractor mercenary guys. What is Gary doing on his page there? Like, are you hiring paramilitary mercenaries? And so what will they do and what will they not do? Is that even legal for him to do? And by the way, if he's a paramilitary guy training operators and mercenaries, and he says right on there that he's going to do security for you. So I presume if you called him and said, hey, I'm a super millionaire kind of guy, and I want to fly in my jet to France, and I need armed guards or whatever, I guess that's what he's talking about. So if something happens, I mean, these guys obviously have to be prepared to shoot people and kill people. I'm not disparaging somebody who would work in the security industry. I'm just saying, what is this guy's background? He's a military guy. He's been to what? Afghanistan, Iraq, I don't even know. Who is he there with? Does he know Flynn? He's in his 40s, right? And by the way, I don't want people to take this as, oh, Jason is anti-military. My father and uncle were both in the Navy. But I think that was a different time. I think Gary and all of his mentally ill friends are from a version of the armed forces that is what has led us to where we are today, this greedy, money-driven, amoral, psychopathic mess that, rut morons like Gary think it's cool and funny to lie about people publicly and make false and actionable statements that are on their face per se libel, which you don't need to prove damages for. And me looking at him using Nazi symbols like that Val nut, that causes me to think that he's a Nazi, and his behavior, this whole threatening people with violence online. He said something about, oh, I should have screen captured this tweet, but he blocked me. He's such a tough guy that he's like threatening me on Twitter and then blocking me. He put up something where he said like, oh, Jason is Epstein's retarded cousin or something. And if he sees me, I'm, never going to chew with my own teeth again, or, some kind of ridiculous high school bully, asshole, stupid shit that only losers say to people. Losers and morons. And people who think they can go to foreign countries with guns and equipment that we all paid for and kill a bunch of weak people that he really has no reason to even be there for, that has really made the world more dangerous and turned New York into the shithole filled with people seeking revenge and taking our money. This is what stupid Gary and all of his friends did. He's not tough, he's not smart, and he's not a hero. By the way, Gary, if you are a hero, let's say going to Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever the fuck you went that you shouldn't have gone in the first place, and did a bunch of shit that you shouldn't have done in the first place, that made nobody's life any better. Don't fool yourself. I have real sympathy for people that were deceived into going there and realize that now. Remember that guy on the phone who said to me, he left his pride in Iraq? That made me sad. I don't know that guy, but it made me feel bad for him. See, honest people, I don't know that guy, I can't say that he is, but when he said that, I had a presumption that all the law enforcement was involved in something untoward, but I don't know that. My point is, leaving your pride there, that makes sense to me now, because that guy might realize that what they were doing there was dishonest and terrible, okay? And, there's a way to say, you know what, I did it out of a sense of duty, and I thought it was the right thing to do, but I'm smarter now, and I realize something now. What I see in Gary is a military industrial complex drone. He's a little worker bee who doesn't give a shit. This is the psychopath part, right? He doesn't care who he hurts. He doesn't care if he has evidence that, see, when he says that John Cullen is committing fraud and lying to people to get you to give him money, that's a very specific statement that he's presented no evidence of. For instance, if he had a phone call or some recording of a person saying, oh, I know that X is true, but today I'm going to say Y because I think it's explosive and controversial and going to make money even though I know it's false. That would be fraud, right? If you tell people you have a tactical company that specializes in NRA training, but it's actually a front for an international mercenary organization that's staffed by mostly Nazis and idiots who are ideologically aligned with Nazis. If you're some big military hero, what is it that you think you're protecting? It's supposed to be the United States of America, we the people. So that means all of these military heroes should revere the individual freedom of every single person. Same with cops, by the way. That's why I get so upset when I see them doing nothing, because really, just like fucking stupid Gary, the ginger Nazi dildo, most of the cops I see in New York City in 2024 seem predominantly preoccupied with intimidating people and being wise asses. So that's what Gary likes to do on Twitter. But again, I didn't say anything to this knucklehead, this utter moron, until I noticed that just a few days after these shenanigans with the Cullen gun video, he made a video about photos of Max Urich, analyzing photo analysis of various images of Max Urich, which I found odd because most people were doing that a while ago when we first learned about Urich and didn't really know what his involvement may or may not have been. He didn't have new photos. It just seemed like a little bit, why is he doing this? This is a gun guy, and he's been talking about the gun stuff and the crack thumps and all this and that. Why is he now coming and talking about Photoshop? Now, he dropped a few words. Was he the idiot who spoke about pixelization? No, that was maybe the guy talking to Patrick Bet-David. He strikes me as maybe a gun-toting moron who, edits his own videos, so, he has a maybe better than average understanding of how to edit things and maybe how to do simple stuff in Photoshop. So he suddenly thinks he's an expert. The funny thing is, he's evaluating this photograph of Max Urich that when this all started, somebody had posted on one of my tweets you know, I was doing all those videos about who is Max Urich and analyzing the photo and coming up with actual tangible evidence that it was manipulated with Photoshop. I explained to everyone that the resolution of the death photo that was leaked, that gave me evidence. The resolution of 1200 by 901 was in and of itself evidence that the photo had been manipulated. And you know, he's evaluating the ear, he doesn't know what he's looking at, but the creme de la creme is that he had that triptych that somebody made where it's like Urich alive, the death photo, but this somebody who made it and posted it on my tweet had removed all the blood and retouched it to look like a dead guy without blood all over his face, and it was a pretty amateur retouching job, in my opinion. Even if I had not seen the photo before, it looked to me like an amateur had done something weird to it, didn't look natural at all. And I said to the guy, don't post that, that's a fake photo. And he said, no, I took the blood off because it was too gross for people to look at and getting strikes on YouTube, and I thought the information was still good. And I said, no, you can't do that. You can't change an evidence photo and put it in here. Maybe that person wasn't doing it on purpose. But the funny thing is, stupid Gary is sitting there doing a serious photo, or pseudo-serious photo analysis of this thing, saying, oh, you know, compare the facial hair on the retouched fake. He didn't say retouch, he said, look at the facial hair on this guy, doesn't look like Crooks. I'm saying to myself, you're not looking at facial hair, stupid, you're looking at fake pixels. So what occurred to me was, it just seemed strange that this guy, most people who watch the show realize that within the team of John and myself, and I'm not saying I'm the world's top expert on digital imaging, nor am I saying that John is the world's top expert on guns, but within our crew, my expertise is in digital imaging and digital video, and John's is in guns. He has some knowledge of this stuff. He knows how to edit his own videos, and he's aware of the capabilities of these things, just like I'm aware that guns fire bullets, and there's different kinds that do various different things, and I have a very sort of cursory I'm not here doing high-level analysis of gun stuff, but that's my point. And so this guy, Gary, doing the type of photo analysis that he was doing, he wasn't just like looking at a picture and saying, I think it's real or fake. He said, we're going to do an in-depth photo analysis. I forget what he said. He dropped a little bit of, you know, information, like if I went on a show and started talking about blackout 223, whatever the hell, you know, you can pick up these buzzwords. This is a very Hollywood piece of shit kind of thing to do, to drop these words that you hear in meetings, and then other people are like, oh my God, this person knows words. He must know other things. But it occurred to me that stupid Gary was doing something. These guys are always doing something, because we got all these, you know, operators, contractors, whatever they are, special military guys. Who is Greg Nichols? What is he doing there? Who are these guys sneaking crowbars out the back? Oh yeah, look, see, the High Line is still closed over there. I was hoping to maybe get a little sunset kind of action. I don't know, have we spoken about this smokestack? I think Charles knows what that does, I forget. It's from back in the day where I guess everything was in New York City and he's an idiot on rollerblades. But yeah, I didn't really care about what this guy Gary was doing until it occurred to me that he was engaging in a social engineering campaign, trying to draw our attention. So let's just talk about for a minute Crooks, because if we want to do photo analysis, you know, Gary is a fucking idiot. He can go shoot guns and talk about that, but he doesn't know what he's looking at. Somebody found, it was the woke lawyer, who found this image. Who's this guy on the right in the suit? I don't know. That's a weirdo looking guy to me. But what a distinctively sharp and narrow chin this dude has. He looks a hell of a lot like Underbite Crooks to me. What is going on with all of the weird doppelgangers? I like this shirt. What's going on with all the weird doppelgangers who are hanging out in Butler, PA on July the 13th? I mean, Maybe that's not the same guy as under by Crooks, but boy, they sure look similar. It's weird. It's really weird. And then, oh, I think I might have forgot to load it in here, but you know, if people aren't following on X, I definitely recommend that you go on there. There's a lot of stuff getting shared on there, but there's, you know, people who've been looking at the Giga sync. I got to talk about that as well. And, you know, finding things in other videos, and then we go to the Giga sync and find them there. So, you see, there was this guy, Gus something. I forget his name. It was a fake name. It wasn't a real name, and a fake picture. And that's fine. Some people might have a need to do that, stay anonymous and whatever. There are actually people who send me things that they find, and I say, oh, do you want me to put this out and keep you anonymous, or do you want me to, and they say anonymous. So I get it. There's people who work in jobs and they don't want their professional life to be affected by their personal beliefs. By the way, George's brother and all these assholes like Gary who appear to be working with him, that's what they do. They want to go destroy the livelihoods of people who would come on to Crowdsource the Truth and give you their firsthand witness testimony about what they saw and experienced. So again, that's psychopathic behavior, because they want to hurt me and they don't care whoever has to get hurt in doing that. So the reason I'm making this whole video about Gary is because it became quite clear to me that he was trying to draw my attention with that stupid video about Max Urich, because he's a knuckle-dragging moron who doesn't know the first fucking thing about digital imaging, and him making that video would be as stupid as me sitting there trying to analyze supersonic and tell you what round and this and that. So he's made a video this afternoon pointing out that John said something about a particular type of bullet being available with a particular type of round, or whatever the hell they were talking about. It was very specific. He could be correct. John, it seemed like he found what he was looking for. I can't question these things because I'm not a gun expert. So, and it's also, I don't need to go tit for tat. If John misspoke, or if there's some particular component that exists that he didn't realize, that doesn't obviate his expertise. It doesn't mean he's unqualified to talk about this. He's just maybe misspoke, or maybe, and the detail this guy brought up was not even like, busted your whole thing. It's just like niggling little tiny details where you go through hours and hours of video of somebody talking about stuff and you find a mistake. And even if John made a mistake, I've known him long enough that I can guarantee that if it's pointed out to him, he'll change his position. So Gary's on some kind of like gotcha mission to tell people that John and I should not be listened to, should not be subscribed to, and I just want people to make their own decisions. I'm not telling anybody not to listen to anybody. People will say, oh, but Jason, you're always talking about George. But I don't tell people not to listen to him. I tell people that I think he's a social engineer and a liar and a drunk, because that's my experience with him, and I wouldn't be talking about him at all if it wasn't for the fact that he and his brother appear to be coordinating, and certainly are involved in, a litany of legal actions that have been brought against me over the past 7 years. So Gary, right away, see, I don't want to tell everything about what I've figured out about what these fucking nitwits are doing, because it'll help them do it better next time, and they need all the help they can get. I'm not going to give it to them. All right, so here's a retard. That's a Democrat, definitely. Sir, can I politely remind you guys, excuse me, can I politely remind you that wheeled devices like this are not allowed on the High Line?
Even you're just pushing them?
You're not, well, pushing them is fine, but riding them like that guy was not allowed. Just want to let you know. Thanks. So people think that's Karenish of me. People are getting their ankles broken, going to the hospital. We got jackasses coming from other places, tourists. My point is, just like these whatever the hell it is that Gary thinks he is. He thinks he's a big hero for going to Iran or, Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever the hell he's gone with money that we have all paid to give him his tough guy equipment. He thinks he's a hero. But you see, when that ship came to New York and all those military people were around, or even just a few weeks ago when I was down at the courthouse, there's an Army recruiting center down there, and there's always some young Gary in the making asshole standing outside there doing something he shouldn't be doing, like spitting in the street or playing music. And one time I said to the guy, you're from the US Army. You should not be spitting in the street. And like a thug, he said, fuck you, mind your own business. And I said, you know what, I'm a citizen of New York, and the Army is not supposed to be here patrolling the streets, so it's my business that you're disrespecting the city, you're disrespecting the citizens of the city. Who do these guys think they're protecting and defending? That's my question. Because if you want to be treated like or consider yourself some honorable American hero, you damn well better protect Americans and the Constitution and not go around lying about people and trying to gin up lawsuits and making actionable statements. Now Gary's going to complain and say, oh, Jason tried to use big tech censorship against me. Wrong, Gary. You're a fucking moron and you want to come tangle with me in my environment. I'm not going to go fight you in a desert with guns and doing all that psychopath killer shit that you obviously know how to do. You incorrectly presume that I wouldn't say any of these things that I'm saying if you were right here in front of me. I'd be even more animated if you were here to tell you what a fucking moron you are, because you are. And the fact is, if you weren't, you wouldn't care what John Cullen was saying, and you wouldn't involve yourself in these kind of fifth-generation warfare operations. I find it so interesting that all of these, operators who I don't know, were these guys hired to be in Ukraine? Gary, you know anybody who went to Ukraine? Do you know Max Urich? Do you, Gary? Do you know Greg Nichols, Gary? Do you know Michael Flynn? Do you know Ivan Raiklan? You're about Ivan's age. What is with you fucking assholes, all of you guys? I think you think that's this us versus them kind of thing, and it's civilians like Jason are the enemy on Twitter or YouTube or wherever the battleground is. But he's using George's brother's information, spreading it around to all these anonymous accounts that they look a lot like some of those people in his cadre there. So I think these are operators, and I think that these guys in their 40s, they're existing at a weird time because they've come up through a corrupt military and they are products of corruption. So that's all they know, is how to be corrupt losers and liars. This guy's a genius. And that's what Gary is doing. By the way, I don't have proof that Practical Tactical, or whatever his stupid company is called, is a front for a neo-Nazi paramilitary mercenary organization. I haven't proven that. That's just my opinion based on looking at this different stuff that he's done. Now, I don't know all that much about this Val nut. It's associated with, fallen Norse warriors, Norway and Sweden and all that kind of this pagan type religions that it does play into the formation of Germany and the history of the Nazi Party and all that. Heinrich Himmler was very interested in this, Nordic kind of Germanic, different, mythology and all of that. Himmler was the guy who created the SS, and he ran it, and he wanted to create a religion for them. Because as I understand it and what I've read, in the 1930s in Germany, most people were Christian. And this notion of, we don't like the Jews, they were like, yeah, that's cool. But now go kill them all. They were like, well, that seems a little bit not so Christian. And they were having a hard time getting people on board with that. So this is what Himmler wanted to do. And he wanted to create this religion. He had a castle where he was, collecting all these bizarre artifacts, primarily, Nordic mythology and just any kind of mythological thing, Thor's hammer and the Holy Grail and the Spear of Destiny and the Ark of the Covenant, all these things, the Nazis wanted to collect and preserve in this Heinrich Himmler castle because they believed they had whatever, some sort of occult, magical abilities. Now, Ginger Nazi, what's his name, Gary, is going to say, oh no, that's stupid, that's, you know, ADL or whatever, is not what it means, and this and that. And I do agree that there's disagreement over what that symbol means and where it comes from and how long it's been around, and there's one version that's made of one line, and there's another version that's made up of 3 separate triangles joined and whatever. The one thing that seems quite clear is that there's a lot of disagreement over what that symbol means. And Gary is free to do whatever the hell he wants. I really don't care. That's why I never spoke about him until I detected that he was involved in a social engineering campaign that was designed to destroy my social media accounts and get me into another lawsuit and get people to not subscribe to my show. I don't tell people don't subscribe to this person or that. I'll share my experiences with that person with you and allow you to draw your own conclusions. There's a lot of people who are going to watch this video and not agree with what I'm saying about Gary, but I've known about this symbol for quite some time, and I've also known that there's a lot of controversy about it. It really started coming up like January 6th, because remember the American shaman, the QAnon shaman, he had that Val Newt, however you want to say it. He's got that tattooed on him. And he also has the Thor hammer tattooed on him. And I don't know, he might have blocked me on Twitter. I don't really pay attention to him that much anymore. But when he first came out of jail and was, you know, becoming active on social media, I either DM'd him or tweeted at him. I think this was when Laura was tangling with that bone-faced dude, Kent, what's his name, who's also a Nazi, who Laura got body cam footage from the cops who arrested him that day that Laura was tangling with him. And they said something like there was a CIA or FBI letter in his file that said, don't arrest this guy. So that's what I'm saying. We know that there are neo-Nazis that are somehow getting letters from the FBI or the IC saying, don't arrest Bone-Faced Kurt the Nazi. Gary, do you have one of those letters? Because it seems like you have all the bullshit that George's brother has published. Oh no, maybe that was a friend of yours. There's been that's the thing, these idiots come at me in waves. You'd think they'd know that I would notice by now. It's been 7 years of this. But anyway, it just seemed like, you know, Gary wants a lawsuit because he thinks that me saying, looking at his stupid company and his stupid Nazi logo and looking at his stupid fucking face and evaluating the way that he acts and saying, this guy seems like a Nazi to me, he thinks that's actionable. He's wrong. That's my opinion. He should test it. He should test it. Ask a judge. They always appreciate it when you bring stupid fucking lawsuits. But the fact is, this is my opinion, and I am allowed to say it. You falsely announcing that somebody has committed fraud without having any evidence to back that statement, that is actionable. That's per se libel, it's defamation, and because fraud is a crime, I don't have to prove damages if I was to choose to take action against you, but you're such a fucking ginger loser, it would be pointless. So anyway, I'm saying all this because I want you, the unsuspecting viewer who maybe feels confused by all this beefing. There's a lot of people who say, oh, come on, you guys are doing good work and Chris Martenson is doing good work. By the way, all these guys who I'm talking about, Gary and his stupid friends, his cadre of criminals and morons, they all are very pro Unsteady Dave. And that's strange too, because like I said, we see all these operators hanging around the building, all these sort of skinny, lanky white dudes with pale legs who are hanging around the building wearing black sneakers and doing really not much else. it's weird. They all seem like, you know, kind of like military contractor operators. They look like they'd be friends with Mr. Asshole. And yet, now here these guys are. I never saw these guys before. You know, the Vegas shooting, they weren't around. I saw some other guy who's some ex-military sniper who now is a pro video editor, according to him. And this is what I wanted to say about the Giga sync. So that guy, it was strange because it's not that strange. A lot of people can have the idea that I had. And you know what? Maybe what he's doing is better than what I'm going to do. I don't know. I haven't really seen the full realization of his project yet, but that was some military guy. I mean, this to me, it's sort of like if I went and took some, 4-week tactical class and then started making videos about military stuff and guns. I probably would know more than a lot of people about those topics after a 4-week class, and maybe I'm able to articulate my ideas and put together an engaging and entertaining video that might be a good tool. I might not be as experienced in the material, but I could be a better teacher, and that might result in an effective video. But that wasn't my impression. This guy seemed like a military douche who was maybe the best digital video guy they had in a sniper regime, or whatever that is. And that's not the same as somebody who would work in Hollywood for many years, or somebody who's developed visual effects techniques for compositing in stereoscopic environments. And, I have a feeling that I understand digital imaging in the way these dyed-in-the-wool gun guys understand guns. And that's why I'm not making videos where I'm, talking in detail about aspects of guns that I don't understand. Like, if somebody gets shot with a gun and then you see them fall down and die, I can understand that they probably got shot. But, people understand what I'm saying. So the other reason I think they're doing this, and it's a coordinated effort, is because this guy Gus, who I started talking about, I had blocked him a while ago, and if I block you, it's because you either say something so stupid and offensive that I just don't want to deal with you anymore, or I detect that you are a social engineer, or very likely a social engineer. And that's what happened with this guy, Gus. I don't often second guess myself, and it happened yesterday, and I shouldn't have done it, or 2 days ago, something like that. So this guy, Gus, had published something. I don't even remember what it is. I'd have to go back to Twitter to look at it. There's so many messages coming in there. But he published something that was definitely intriguing, and somebody brought it to my attention, and I had noticed I had blocked him, and I said, well, maybe I jumped the gun. Let's unblock this person and see if they have helpful information. And then just within a few minutes, some sort of snide tweet, he was like, where can I access the Giga sync? And I was like, it's not like some publicly accessible online thing. It's a very big Premiere project file that I've created that's sitting on a computer in my apartment, and even transmitting the entire contents of the project would be a complicated thing that would it'd take a while to land it on somebody else's computer and have it work properly, particularly sending it over the internet like that. And it's just not something that I designed to put out on the internet and give to everybody. The idea is it's essentially an interactive video database that I can access, and if people find things in the publicly available videos that are interesting, I'll dive in there and can look at other videos and spit out different versions like I did today. Something incredible happened today. Now, do I have it on here? I thought I did. Is this it? Yeah. So what I discovered was that dash cam, that Motorola M500 dash cam that was released as a part of the Judicial Watch release, there's actually 3 separate audio channels in the MPEG file, and each of them appear to have been recorded by a different microphone. Maybe even 2 of them are radios and 1 of them is a microphone in the car. I think that might be what's happening. Because look at this, track 1 and track 3 are badly overmodulated and clipping. This is the segment where the shooting is happening, and you can see the peaks there of those waveforms. That's a measurement of the amplitude of the audio waveform, and when the peak gets clipped off like that, it's because the input volume to the microphone was too loud, and you're overloading the device's ability to accurately record the sound and give you back a waveform that closely represents what was recorded. It's a distortion of the microphone's ability to work properly. But the good news is, Channel 2 does not exhibit that overmodulation. Actually, this is strange. This is going to require a lot of study, and it's going to be from people who understand guns, and people who understand sound, and people who understand how microphones work, and people who understand how that Motorola recorder works. I think to properly study this, we're going to need to understand how the Butler PD have their police cars arranged with regard to, see, these people are definitely not from New York or even the United States, because nobody from New York would stop on a public stair landing like that and stand around having a conversation about how socialism is great and Europe needs to censor the internet. Oh yeah, so Gary's upset because he thinks I used censorship against him. No, I didn't. He wants to come at me in a social media environment. Well, he got Chris Boozied today, shithead. Don't go threatening people with violence in an environment where that's not allowed if you don't want to get smacked for doing it. Dick. But anyway, that thing with the sound that came out of, trying to disambiguate these files by putting them into a format where I can understand them better. Can I ask you a question? Do you think that this Donald Trump assassination attempt was that guy going on the roof, or was it something more?
I don't know about a guy going on the roof.
You don't know anything about the Donald Trump assassination attempt?
I do, but I don't know about a guy.
Do you think
going on
one
the roof.
guy defied all the police and the Secret Service, or was it something bigger, like
I don't
a
know.
plot?
Probably something bigger, but who knows?
All right, thank
No
you.
one knows.
Well, she was polite enough to speak, but how disengaged, she doesn't care. I mean, she's hot as can be, but doesn't care that somebody's firing bullets, killing innocent people. Maybe she's upset that this A6 was just in an accident, apparently. That looks like that just happened right now, doesn't it? Oh, look, the plastic is still on the ground. Somebody's gonna be pissed. Shit, that looks like 5,000, 6,000, maybe more. Damn. Well, yeah, so anyway, this Gus person was like, oh, how can I, verify the findings of the Giga Sync if I can't use it myself? I mean, that's like saying, how can I know this document that you typed is legitimate unless Microsoft Word is open source or something like that? It's like, I'm using publicly available videos. The way that people can check anything that I put out on the Giga Sync, from the Giga Sync, like this is perfect, this MPEG audio. So somebody stupid like Gary might make a false, unsubstantiated and actionable statement, like they might say falsely, oh, that's not true. Jason made up those other soundtracks to get people to click on things. All right, well, let's explore that possibility. How could you check that? I've said these videos are the public release. I don't have some secret special release. I just got this from Judicial Watch, had that press release where they said, get the videos here. I downloaded that. I put it in there, and because what happened was I was like, the sound sucks from this thing. I'm trying to do a noise cancellation to it, and I was getting terrible results. I was like, well, does this sound worse? Something's wrong. So then I just started looking at the file more, and I was like, oh, wow, look at this. It's got 3 files, but see, the issue is, depending on what you view it in and how you handle the file, you can shove all 3 of those files. Like some things aren't going to be able to deal with an MPEG thing with 3 files, and they'll just give you 1. Or play all 3 as 1. I don't know. We'd have to know about your particular software, whatever anybody was using, to understand if that was happening or not. And by the way, it was tricky to sort out within the software. Like once I identified these 3 tracks, getting it into the workflow of the GigaSync so that, because this is like a systematized way of disambiguating these files. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of stuff that we don't know about all of these files, where they came from, who shot them, the format. In other words, if I was making Spider-Man or Julia X with Kevin Sorbo, I'm not going to get all these mysterious videos in post-production that I don't know how many soundtracks they have and what format they're at and did they use drop frame to, you'd know everything. So this whole, people even now are like, oh, well, so who do you think did it? Who's the shooter? I'm like, I don't know. And I'm not in, maybe I was at the beginning. I think it's a natural feeling, but I'm not trying to be like, oh, I'm breaking this and I'm figuring this out first and blah, blah, blah. I would rather understand this very, very well before I start making conclusions about anything than Tom wants me to chat up a girl with a dog. That's a good idea, actually, because I think I would need that, because then the girl would know how to take care of the dog and could teach me everything I need to know about dogs. That girl didn't have a dog. That girl didn't need a dog. But I don't know. I don't think we would get along. She doesn't even know that the assassination attempt was happening. I don't know. But yeah, it was quite challenging to deal with this file because, again, it's not some production format. This is some police format where you don't usually have 3 channels of audio there. But this is a big discovery because that channel 2 not being overmodulated during the moments that the guns were firing, that's going to tell us a lot, because what we were listening to before was a hell of a lot of distortion. And now we've got, that's an incredibly important recording. I watch Chris Martenson, and I'm not telling anybody not to watch him. I'm disappointed by the attitude that he has expressed to us. And even Mike Adams, who I have personal beef with, I don't, you know, if he wanted to talk about this information and do something that would be productive, I'm not talking necessarily about a show, but I could bury the hatchet with that guy, and, you know, although I don't know about that, you know, he's down with Paul Cottrell and lots of social engineers. That's the thing, and it's not about holding a grudge, it's about understanding that you're walking into a trap. Like this guy Gus, you know, all right, so he had some useful piece of information, and that got me to say, oh, okay, maybe I should unblock him. And then right away, he starts in with the, oh, where's the GigaSync? How do I test it? And I could tell by what he was saying and how, or this person, he or she, I could tell by the way this account was acting that, you know, they were trying to set me up for some little social media thing where their result would be a tweet that, like, oh, everything Jason is doing with this GigaSync project can't be trusted for X, Y, and Z reason. So I just blocked that idiot again. And I mean, I think that's what stupid Valnut Nazi Gary is onto. Because the truth of the matter is, we could have had a productive conversation, you know? And I could say, look, I disagree with John that it's muzzle flash, but I disagree with Gary that it's like a reflection or nothing. There's clearly something there. And by the way, all these people, I've seen a lot of people say, oh, anybody who says there was a second shooter is disinformation. Well, how do you know that? There's even somebody who was an eyewitness saying that. Well, how do you know? I would think in some regards, the eyewitnesses, particularly those that were in the line of fire, I think you'd have a very bad idea of where gunfire was coming from. I think you could tell people where you heard, you know, bullet sounds, but we'd need to do the type of analysis that John and some of these other people are doing to have any kind of understanding of what those bullet sounds mean, because remember, the supersonic thing hitting something might be the first thing you hear, and then you hear the thump over elsewhere, someplace far away from you. So my point is, it seems quite clear that Gary is at least an extremely stupid guy who goes around making comments about things he doesn't know anything about, like manipulated digital photos, and who is or is not, I think that guy must be deaf, who is or is not committing fraud. He just comes right out with actionable statements. And then when I share my opinion that only a psychopath and a Nazi would do that, he starts to contemplate if he's going to sue me. Damn it, that looks out of business. This was a super nice Japanese restaurant that I never went to, and I remember thinking I'd like to try it, and now, no, not happening. That's bad. Yeah, well, even if Gary is not a Nazi, see, I think he is, because he made that comment about Epstein. It's clear, only someone who has a deep-seated hatred of Jewish people would right away go to, oh, Jason's Jewish, he must be Epstein's retarded cousin. Gary is so ignorant, he doesn't even realize he's a Jew-hating Nazi asshole. He probably realizes it, and so do his friends. But my point is that Val Newt is controversial enough that if you weren't a total moron, or if you didn't, it seems like the only person who would make that the symbol for their company is either a Nazi, someone completely ignorant of what it means, or somebody who doesn't care what other people will think about it. You might say, oh, that's a Nordic symbol, not a Nazi symbol. All right, that's your opinion. People might disagree with that. There's a lot of people who see the Confederate flag and they say, oh, well, that's about the Confederacy and the South and the history. And, I don't know. I'm aware there's an argument that some people support, which is that that flag has historical meaning and importance beyond slavery. And I'm also aware that there are other people who think that flag represents racism. I don't particularly have feelings about that flag. I never knew what it was until I was about 10 and watched The Dukes of Hazzard, and I liked that show because they jumped cars and had Daisy Duke. And so I think I had a positive impression of that symbol without knowing what it was. But I recognize that there are people who don't like it. So even though I may or may not think it's associated with racism, I'm not so ignorant as to be unaware that making a business with that logo on it is going to offend a shitload of people. So all I'm saying is Gary doesn't have to not offend me. I'm just observing that he's either a Nazi who wants people to know that he likes that symbol, or somebody who doesn't care if other people think that's a Nazi symbol, because in his view, the only people who think that's a Nazi symbol are Jews like me who he hates anyway. So Gary is a disgusting guy, however you want to cut it. And like I said, the bottom line to all of this, people should continue watching it. People should continue dealing with the practical, tactical, whatever shit he's doing over there, training mercenaries and sending them to Ukraine, allegedly. I don't know. Does he know Max Urich? Gary, do you know Max Urich? Did you? He might be dead. He looks a lot like the dead guy on the roof. You wouldn't know. You only have fake, retouched by amateur photos of him that you can't even tell when they're right in front of your face that they're fake. But I'm not telling anybody not to watch him. I want people to watch these guys and be aware of what they're doing. Maybe you disagree with me, but that's basically where I wanted to go with that. The findings from the Giga Sync are the big news. The 3 audio channels, I mean, that's amazing. To me, we now have one of the cleanest recordings. I'm hearing sounds in there that I haven't heard before, bullets doing things. It sounds like they're ricocheting. I mean, I can't really make that determination. See, the ironic thing is, a fucking idiot Nazi like Gary probably has a lot more firsthand experience with what bullets sound like, bouncing off of things, and this type of bullet sounds like that type of bullet sounds like this. He's not the one who found the 3 audio tracks in the MPEG file, and that doesn't make me a genius. I'm just saying He thinks he knows everything. I think he's got a very narrow body of knowledge, and he's primarily a shithead. Because you see, if him and all of his superhero, rah-rah military friends were so great, why are us civilians living in cities that are so shitty right now? See, I think the misguided morons like Gary, who have become contractors to the military-industrial complex that's now turned against us, that's what makes me think he's a Nazi. That's fascism. These are my opinions. You might disagree. We'll see who's into censorship, Gary. You want to sue me to not talk about the fact that you're a ginger fuck who speaks out of turn and doesn't know what he's talking about? You're a dunce. By the way, look at these tiny feet on this loser. You know what that means. Some people saw the picture that he was using. Oh yeah, did we discuss this? That he blocked me? I think I mentioned that. Some people say he looks gay in this picture with the gun in his pants. I don't know, that's an opinion. Doesn't matter if he is or isn't. That has nothing to do with this argument. He might be gay. He probably has expertise in what semen tastes like, if that's the case. I don't know. That's somebody's opinion that he's gay. He could be, I don't care. But yeah, it seems like all this is also happening in a moment where George's brother is getting upset. I don't want to talk about that part yet. Gary, I got your number. You're a dunce and people know it. Have fun shooting things and threatening to beat people up. By the way, who thinks that's a hero? Starting beefs on Twitter and then threatening to be. I weigh like 155 pounds. What does that guy weigh? 220? Is that a mystery that he's gonna come and punch me and that's gonna, what happens to me? And then what happens to him? He's threatening on Twitter that he sees me in person. By the way, he could try it if he wants, but he's gonna, knock my teeth out and all this sort of stuff. Is that a hero? Sounds like a thug and a moron. So sometimes he wants to be this intellectual analyst of gunshots and digital photos of Max Urich. I really would like to know what she thinks of the assassination. And sometimes he's a threatening bully, but I think that's his real persona. This is a good kind of dog, a husky. Don't photograph the dog? All right. Well, don't stand behind me because you're going to get on there anyway. Let's see how mad this dude gets. Just walk away, stupid. What's with all these people who think they have a right to tell you what to do in public? He's trying to not photograph his dog, but this camera's everywhere. It's just people want something to yell and complain about. Maybe that's Gary's problem. Maybe his father didn't like him, like Dave. Maybe his father punched him in the face. Ooh, wait a minute. This is a good research project. What is Gary? What is even his last name? Meltdown? What is his history in the United States? Because those symbols, they come from these pagan religions and these Germanic tribes. Anton Dilger's father, he wasn't exactly from Germany. I forget what it's called now, but there were these kind of provinces or whatever they were before World War I. And then those things all joined together and became Germany. But this is where the story of what that symbol is and what it means to Nazism in Germany and all that, this is where it gets a little hazy, and the history is maybe even not that well known by idiots like Gary. But I wonder, was his grandfather a German subversive World War I double-cross agent along the lines of Anton Dilger's father, and I suspect George Henry Swigert? Are these guys all descendants of paperclip Nazis? I don't know. But these are all valid questions to ask based on their public behavior, their insults of me, their ethnic insults, saying that I have something to do with Epstein. Because why? Because I'm Jewish and he's Jewish? Is he one of these guys who thinks Israel did everything and all Jews equal Israel? You're a sick fuck, Gary. Don't mess with me and my friends, or getting your Twitter account dinged is the type of thing that will happen. If you want to sue me, I'm prepared for that. It's going to cost you a lot of money.